What's good, y'all? Welcome to the MAZIST, where madness meets mythos, mythos meets method, and method solves mysteries. I'm your host, Christopher, and today we'll be talking about, world building. And specifically, what is world building, you know, at large, and then what is world building within the MAZIST model. I'm going to show you guys the benefits of world building by showing you an example from my own practice, and then maybe talk about some methods to try on your own. So, to start, what is world building? And I think world building at large is really a process of creating ideas that exist in their own immersive context. And if that seems a little too confusing, if that seems too much like a dictionary definition, look at someone like Tyler, the Creator. When he made the Wolf trilogy, he made characters. He made cinematic, almost like cinematic experiences, in his music videos, in the way his fashion matched his music, the way his style was very colorful and very, particular to the characters he was talking about. That's world building. Igor, that whole uh, rollout was perfect for what I'm talking about here. And then Call Me If You Get Lost. That was also another prime example of world building. Costume design, set designs, lyrical storytelling, and musical motifs all create a specialized context for his work. You don't get it anywhere else. That's the world he's building. You feel me? A lesser known example that I want to talk about real quick is Gal the Arsonist. Gal the Arsonist is someone I found out about last year, and or 2025. And he's just a really great example of someone who is combining science fiction or fantasy or like, steampunk core kind of vibes with rap music. And his particular brand of rap music is very dark. It's very distorted, and I love that about his work. His work is very particular to him. And I think the concepts of Vuono and Gomorrah from his comic, and that's also included in his music, provides a context for the commentary that he wants to talk about in his work. Things about industrialization, things like environmental concerns, things like mental health and depression, and decay, things that seem dark, but within this context you can view it with like a more um not entertaining, what's the word, with like a more with a more vivid perspective. His characters, there's Gal, there's Virgil, there's the Haskells, or I forgot the girl's name, but it's Haskell. And then there's the Sludge. And I want to talk about the Sludge for a second. The Sludge is a concept that provides both a driving force for the narrative. I'm not going to spoil anything, but also a contextual point for the way his music sounds. That's what, like, he always talks about, like, don't like let the sludge take over. uh Here's the sludge, or the sludge is coming. That's that's a aesthetic that he's building with his music that you can't get anywhere else. That's sludge. Naming it gives it a power to the where it sticks in the audience's mind. you know and so in the Mazist model, these are all really good examples of world building at large. But for me, world building is a method for creating connections and functions for concepts, and to provide narrative depth to the art. And I think of it as like a design principle. I'm like formally trained in graphic design and in like spread design and stuff like that. The form of my ideas should follow their function. And so how that applies to my art, sorry, excuse me. um, how that applies to my art is that every concept exists in a single world, right? And belongs to certain characters within that world, kind of like Gao. And then each idea operates on several layers that unfold as each project releases. As every project is released, layers on each concept, layers on the words I speak, the pictures I use, the concepts that are shared within the music and the books and the blog posts. They are literally like secrets, you know. They're like tidbits into the universe, into my mind, that I want to unfold for the audience, slowly, slowly but surely. And then like the basic idea is that I want to be able to um share like almost like a cinematic universe where like by the end of my whole artistic journey, you'll be able to look at all the Easter eggs, all of the characters, all of the music, and see that it exists within its own special realm, And so when talking about the music, right? Certain certain lyrics of mine reference, special philosophical or metaphysical concepts particular to the world I'm creating. And the concepts operate as a function of context for certain characters, motives, beliefs, attitudes, and perspectives. And then sometimes the concepts even provide anchors into, certain scenes within the narrative itself. And you might be wondering like how I came up with, that process, or this this kind of way of thinking about the music. And it came about because as I grew in my writing process, particularly in lyricism, I found that I literally channeled my writings, I discovered it through these more like automatic methods of drafting. When I started getting, good at writing lyrics, I often just let the pen flow from beginning to end. And then I just spent the following days rereading, reciting, and then making mental notes trying to decode the meaning of the words. I didn't really know what I was doing at a certain point when I was writing it, in real time, Now this is very specific to me, I feel like, because I tend to lean towards more cryptic, abstract means of language in my art. And I learned quite recently in my process that my lyrics speak from a different place or realm altogether. Oh, it's the cat. Um, Operating on an alternate logic than my conscious operation, you know? And so I'm gonna share you guys an example. This song is called Mad Sphinx. It's just released. And I'm just gonna play a short clip for context right now. What's the mission? Yeah. Full road an hourglass to Rorschach. You phased along the glass. I think I surf glass and make you think you hit the scene. Damn floor rolling rinky, making mad decisions on an instinct. My God and blinks. Ride along my manic flight like Cotter Hawk. I'm wind sinks. Flicker think my jade across the room. The glass clink, 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 clink. Make him see a mad sphinx. I got mad links. Make him think twice when you on the brink. Yeah. Made it. All right. That was that. So that was just a small clip of like the first 30 seconds or so of Mad Sphinx, right? Now, when I wrote this, again, it came almost automatically. The pen was very fluid, but the rhythm and word choice came from a particular scene that the music seemed to soundtrack for me. When I heard this beat, I was like, I see it. I see it in my head so clearly. Now I just have to put words to it. Now I have to tell the story. Now, the world building evident in this song has a few layers, right? One, the world that my music and my art exists within has magic or arcana. So characters are established with this like unconventional, abstract action and language, The first four lines of the song introduce the two characters in the scene and immediately immerses the listener in the cinema of the moment. And for me, language and writing is a canvas for this particular principle. I like to call expressive encryption. In which concepts are named plainly, but with vivid context, and it's not really direct. That's why it's called encryption. You need to consistently absorb the art in order to really unfold the meaning of all these different arcane concepts, these spells, these magics that I include in my music. And so the rest of the song is really a confrontation between these two characters. And while that is all well placed with imagery, specific word choice, and tone, the true depth of the song has to be unlocked by the audience through other channels. You know, I wrote about a page exploring the narrative concept of the Mad Sphinx. And then rather than just using it as some abstract word salad, it is a key idea that anchors the audience into the type of person, or rather wizard, that my main character is. And then it also keys them into the mechanics of the scene they are listening to. So I'm going to read you guys a short excerpt from that page. The Mad Sphinx avatar is a program specifically designed for Mando interrogation. It decides its moves from a customizable set of torturous, violent acts. What occurs upon casting is a collage of brute force and measured cruelty. The Mad Sphinx itself tests the psyche of the Mando operative for the confession that Timewise, my main character, Timewise needs to rectify the quantum commando. So the test itself is an intense round of psychic questioning interspersed throughout the torture. Now, this is an example of layers, layers of context to be unfolded across mediums. And this kind of technique offers a kind of scavenger hunt which unravels the music's depth for the listener and reader, Now, this is just one example of world building from a myriad of other examples you can listen to and read into on my blog and in my music, right? But what I want to stress here is that world building creates depth. It provides context and reasons for the ideas to exist. And I think ideas themselves are, they're worthy on their own, for their own merit. I think when you have an idea, it's your duty to bring it to life. Just because it exists doesn't mean you need to give it a reason. But when I say context and reasons for ideas to exist, I mean that it needs to world building provides exploration, opportunities for exploration and excavation of the ideal realm that you're creating. You feel me? It gives a world for the audience to fall in love with, to connect to, and it opens genres up for fusions and unexpected mediums. You feel me? In my example, right? Not only is the Mad Sphinx avatar a sci-fi fantasy concept, it is a vehicle for my exploration of violence, all through literary and hip-hop sensibilities. You know what I'm saying? World building is an invaluable tool in the diverse landscape of creativity we have today, right? With Tyler and Gal, they are using it to bridge the gaps between their interests, backgrounds, and skill sets. And in the MAZIST model, it builds on that. World building creates multi-layer and multi-function ideas which provide depth and context to the creative practice. And I really want y'all to think about how you can do that, within your own practice. How can you make an idea, right, not just the one thing that it can become, but provide context for it in a world that you can build for it. What's the scene it's within? What is the characters involved in the making of your idea? What is the reasoning for it to exist in the world today? You know, either to you, it doesn't really have to make sense to the world, honestly. It could really just be, you know, intrinsic to who you are and what you care about. That's really all that matters, you know? But world building gives you that seriousness, that context to explore that deeply, you know? But that's all for today. If you like this video and want to see more like it, let me know in the comment section, and like, subscribe, and share. If you're interested in the Mad Sphinx, the song is out on all platforms, and more lore can be found on my blog, link in the description. But, you know, for now, peace. Maze out.